GABL, brought to you by Tozix.
Hello, welcome back to GABL. I'm Jonathan.
And I am Don.
We're back again with another episode. This week we're talking about pencils.
Pencils and space pens.
Yeah, probably. We'll end with the space pen, naturally.
Yeah, I'm the pencil, it's so common, and we don't think about where it originated from and what it's made up of. How do they make a pencil? And so in doing research and reading some of the feedback that we've been getting, this topic kind of came up in my mind, and boy, it's been pretty enlightening to dig into it and figure out where pencils are. Now, there's a common misconception.
Okay, what is it?
We say a lead pencil.
Okay, yeah. So I have my assumptions. So don't correct me yet, but my assumptions were always that they're called lead pencils because originally they were made with lead and now they're made with graphite. Because of course I know they're made with graphite. Everybody knows that when you're in school. They're like, oh yeah, they used to be they're graphite and they're not lead.
Well, they never were made with lead.
Oh, I was wrong.
Yes, they were never made with lead. They were made with a substance that was like lead, and some people called it lead ore, but it was always basically graphite. And so it's graphite mixed with clay, and then it's fired or kilned at 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh yeah, so when we were studying this topic, I remember reading that, and I guess there's different compositions of clay and this.
There is. We'll get into that. Yeah. But so the process of making a pencil is pretty intense.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, you need a wood that is soft enough to sharpen and yet strong enough not to bend when the writer is writing. And so most companies that make the pencil today use cedar wood from right here in California.
Okay.
Okay. So they cut it to where it's 0.2 inches thick. And then they make these planks that are 7 inches long by 2.5 inches wide. So they're 0.2 inches thick, 7 inches long, 2.5 inches wide. And then they have this cutting wheel. So these little slats, basically, think of almost like a cedar shingle of sorts. It goes through this cutting wheel. And that cutting wheel notches the inside groove and makes a channel for the
lead.
quote-unquote lead to sit in. And so then the next machine that the plank goes to fills that channel with glue because you want something that's going
to adhere to the graphite.
Exactly. Because, and not only that, but they want it to be also a shock absorber. So it's kind of that glue becomes a shock absorber as well so it doesn't break inside.
Oh, okay. I see. So it shock absorbs the impact from the tip.
Exactly.
Throughout the body, too.
Exactly. Or if you drop the pencil, so the lead, / graphite doesn't break on the inside of the wood, etc.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So
I thought wood would be soft enough already not to break it, but
yeah, you would think, but it's not. So they use that glue not only to cause the graphite to adhere to the wood, but also as a shock absorber.
A shock absorbing, a buffer. I got it. Okay.
And so that machine fills that channel with glue, and then it moves on to the next machine, which loads the quote-unquote lead, into the channel.
Got it.
Okay? At the same time, there's another machine that is flipping every other piece. So they're on this conveyor belt, and every other piece, it's flipping them over. And then it pieces them together, one on top of the other, basically making like a lead sandwich.
Yeah, a little sandwich with lead and glue.
Exactly.
Or graphite and glue.
And so then these are compressed for an hour at 1 ton of pressure.
Wow.
So what they're trying to do is they don't want it to separate. They want it to rebind, yes. And so that's why when you look at a pencil, you would think it is solid.
Right.
In fact, when I first started thinking about this, I was like, how did they get that lead up inside the wood?
That's interesting. I do know, I have a friend that works at like a lumber mill, and he showed me these pictures of these machines that they heat the wood and they compress it, and they're able to combine these massive pieces of wood. And when they steam it and heat it, they can even bend the wood.
Wow.
And make these crazy arches and different shapes. So do they heat it at the same time when they compress it?
Yes, they do heat it.
That's kind of like the lumber factory when they make those custom
Like
columns
the glue
and
lamp
beams.
and stuff like that. Yeah, same idea. So a pencil is truly not solid. It's two pieces of wood that are cut in half and then put back together and compressed.
I think he described it as welding wood. I think that was what he called it.
That makes sense.
It's not a perfect term, but it's like welding the wood because you're heating it so much that it starts to bond to itself.
That's interesting.
But you have to compress it to keep it from turning into carbon. Keep it from turning black.
Yes.
Right, becoming carbon or charred.
Exactly. So the next portion of it is then pencils are sliced and shaped. So once they've been compressed, they're still just a shingle of wood, basically, that's 7 inches long by 2.5 inches wide. And so they start going through this slicer, and it starts slicing them into the common pencil that you and I know, which is a hexagon.
Right.
And so it's, as this slat of wood goes through, it cuts on each side. It's cutting, 3, and then it flips it over and cuts the other 3. And by the time it cuts that final cut of the angle, that's when the pencils all split up from each other. And in one slat, you're making...
Oh, I see. So they got. So when you originally said it, I didn't realize we were talking multiple grooves in one piece of wood.
Yeah, so
Got
multiple grooves. And because remember, you have a piece of wood that's 2.5 inches wide
Got it, yeah.
by 7 inches long. So it ends up
And
cutting
5 millimeters
and
thick.
0.2 inches
or 5 millimeters.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
I think that's the conversion. I hope
Something like that. Close enough. And so then once they're sliced and shaped, then they go through this machine that has a hole in it that's about 1/4 inch in diameter. And it shoots them through that, and it lacquers and paints them in one shot. And then they come out, they all land on this conveyor belt. And then another machine squeezes, it heats them up, squeezes the top of the wood to where they then insert a metal ferrule, that's what it's called. And then that's where the rubber eraser is put into, squeezed, and then tightened. And then the final step is it rolls them across a grinding drum. So you have hundreds of pencils, and they're literally all in this conveyor belt, and they roll across this grinding drum. And as they roll across the grinding drum, it sharpens them. And then it sticks them in the cardboard box and ships them to your local store.
Oh, they come sharpened.
A lot of times they do.
Oh,
Yeah, well, yes and no. They used to come sharpened. Some countries still do. Other countries just have the flat cut off end.
Yeah.
So
Most of the pencils I get are flat.
yeah. So here's an interesting.
So that's pencils now.
That's pencils now. Here's another interesting kind of a sideline to that is we would never have the word rubber if it was not for a pencil.
Really?
Yeah. So okay, they used to.
I do know I was looking into the invention of rubber for one of our episodes, and it's pretty nuts.
It's pretty nuts. So, but we would never use the word rubber
okay.
except for the pencil. So, pencils have been around for in different forms. Writing utensils, let's put it that way, have been around for millenniums.
Ages,
you know, and so. But when they first started, and we'll get into this, but when they first started using what we would commonly look at as a pencil, using this graphite, they would carry around breadcrumbs in their pockets. And that's what they used to erase the graphite. So they would take stale breadcrumbs and they would rub the breadcrumbs. This was in the year 1612. From 1612 to 1770, they would take these breadcrumbs and they would rub it on the mark.
Wow.
And the breadcrumbs would erase the marking. However,
Does that work now? Can I
it
do
probably
that now?
would.
Okay.
It probably would. So,
I'm gonna
but
try this.
accidentally, there was a guy. He had breadcrumbs in one pocket, and then he had part of a rubber plant, and it wasn't called rubber back then. I forget the actual scientific term for it, but he had these leaves, this rubber, basically the rubber plant's leaves in his other pocket, and he got them mixed up, which one it was which, and so he put a mark, and he went to erase it. He thought he was using breadcrumbs to take the mark away, but didn't realize that he was actually using this rubber plant. And it rubbed off even easier than the breadcrumbs.
He's like, oh, these breadcrumbs are extra good today.
And so he looked at it and he was like, it rubbed off. I'm rubbing and it's rubbing off. So he called it rubber.
Whoa.
And that's where we got the term rubber.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So, and then the other interesting thing is, in fact, I'm staring right now in our studio, we have a pencil. We have pens and pencils that are sitting out on our desk as we go through.
Yeah, sure
and I'm
do.
staring at one that's yellow. I would say that 95% of school pencils are almost all yellow.
Yeah, and they're all number 2, right?
Do you know why they're yellow?
Because school buses are yellow.
That's a good as guess as
It's
any.
a symbol
I
of
suppose.
learning, much like the apple. I don't know, Don.
Okay.
Tell me before I say something stupid.
So, top quality, quote unquote, lead or graphite used to come from China. And so they painted pencils yellow. One guy got the idea that he would paint his pencils yellow to associate with Chinese royalty. Yellow is the color of Chinese royalty.
I thought purple was the color of royalty.
And he stated that if in his marketing, you're a goof.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I caught it too, but I just moved on. But he stated that if he painted his pencils yellow, kind of his marketing was, it's yellow because mine has yellow lead, or not yellow lead. Mine has Chinese lead, which makes mine a better pencil than the competition.
This is a royal pencil.
Yeah, so they started painting them yellow to associate with Chinese lead.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So trying to show that it was from China to show quality.
The lead was from China,
Yeah,
yes.
the lead was from China. Okay.
Yeah. But, okay, so in March 30th, 1858, a man by the name of Hyman L. Lippmann patented the first pencil ever patented that had a built-in eraser. And he sold it for $100,000. One pencil,
Wow.
$100,000. And yet that
I
was,
imagine he sold the plan, the idea, the resale rights, and all that with it.
I would assume he sold the patents and all of that.
For $100,000?
$100,000. Yes. So, but that's not where the original pencil got its start. In the 16th century, in a place called Cumbria, England, there was a large deposit of graphite, and it was on the hillsides, basically. And there was the shepherds that were out watching their sheep.
Abiding in a field. Yes.
Yeah, and they stumbled across these deposits of graphite. And so they started cutting them into strips, and they were using it to mark their sheep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so
this stuff instantaneously became used for marking things. That's crazy.
yeah, and so they were marking their sheep, and people saw how easy it was to cut. Now, at this point, they were literally just cutting the strips of graphite. They would cut it into a strip, and then they would wind string around it to make like a handle.
Right.
And then they
To
would
stop the graphite from getting all over their hands.
exactly, and then they would mark on their sheep. And when they saw how well it marked on their sheep, they said, it must mark well on everything else. So then they started marking it on, buildings, and they started marking it on trees. And
Stone and
they were
everything else,
marking
yeah.
everything they could. And it became so popular that many, many men became filthy rich off of these graphite mines. And then the queen and the king at that time said, hey, we could use these to make cannonballs. And so they started using it to make cannonballs.
Oh, because it's so easy to work
So
with.
easy. It's
Yeah.
actually, it's the softest solid, one of the softest solid materials.
That's funny because
That's
we call it lead pencils, which is what the hardest solid, the hardest natural occurring solid.
Yes, but it's actually the
Or
graphite.
I'm sorry, that's not right. It's not the hardest. It's the heaviest.
Heaviest, okay. But graphite is one of the softest solids. And so you can shape it, so they were making cannonballs. And then these deposits became protected by the crown. because they were making cannonballs out of it. And so then they, hey, those deposits, we as the kingship, we own them. So then,
well, the crown just, they own whatever they wanted, right?
whatever they wanted.
What was the law back then? It was conquest. They were like, oh, yes, we conquered and we own. That's right.
We own it. That's it. So then Napoleon in 1795, he goes to war. He's warring, but now he can't get the graphite from England because he's at war. So since he was unable to import the graphite from England, he asked a man by the name of Nicholas Jacques Conte. I'm probably murdering the name. He was an officer. He said, I want you to come up with a solution. We've got to have some way to mark our papers, our notes. And within 1 week.
So you said 16th century, but I believe this guy comes into the
1795.
Yeah.
Yes, I apologize. So 1795, he comes on scene, and within 1 week, he's come up with a solution. And he says, if you mix graphite with clay, then you can make your marks. And so he came and presented his idea to Napoleon, and Napoleon said, oh, terrific, let's do it. And so you had some soldiers who were fighting the battle, and you had other soldiers who were making pencils. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Oh, could you imagine? Oh, I'm going to go fight for our country. No, you're making pencils, man.
You're going to make pencils. Ooh.
Bummer. I'm sure he was still happy.
Yes, I'm sure. So
I'd be happy not to get shot at.
Yes, you and me both. So you started to say earlier about the mixture and mixing. And
yeah, I was talking about the different mixes of clay and graphite for different hardnesses, right?
Yes, yeah. So if it has more clay, the pencil
is harder.
Yes,
so
because it will mark.
Is soft.
Yes, so more clay, the pencil's harder, which means the light or the marks will be lighter.
Oh, lighter in color.
It will be lighter in color.
Okay.
And then if you have less clay, you have more graphite, obviously, which means it's softer, thicker, so you're going to have darker. It will be a darker mark on your paper or whatever you're making a mark on. So the entire world, the U.S. is the only nation that signifies our pencils like number 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're always number 2 HB, I noticed.
Okay. In the rest of the world, they use numbers and letters. So there's 2 classification systems. Number 1, they classify them as so there's HB all the way up to 9B. So HB, 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B, 6B.
And that's just a different hardnesses.
Okay, that's different hardnesses. And the B stands for black. Okay, so the higher number in front of the B, the blacker your mark is going to be.
Got it. And we have number 2
We have a number 2 pencil.
So we're 2B.
That's right. So
HB.
we're very low on the scale of darkness, of how dark the mark will be.
It is pretty light in color.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second classification is H. So they have H all the way through 9H.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Now you lost me.
All right.
Keep going.
And H stands for hardness. So in the rest of the world, they don't use a number 2 pencil. They have all of these different pencils. And are you using a 9H pencil? Are you using a 4B pencil? Are you using an H pencil? So H there again stands for hardness. So that's
I imagine the only people that would know this have got to be pencil artists.
Pencil artists, but you would think, but there's actually a lot of different people and industries that use different types of somebody that sketches or does drafts for artistic purposes, they're going to use a 4B to a 9B, basically.
They're going to have them all in their pencil
okay.
Did you know this beforehand, before doing this research?
No.
I had no idea.
I didn't either.
And I wasn't ready to admit it until you just said no.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this. Okay, but then like people that do lithography and things like that, they're going to use like a 6H to 9H.
Got it.
So there's different industries, mathematical drawings, they use a certain type of pencil. Detailed plans use a certain type of pencil. Freehand drawing, and it goes on and on and on. So it's very unique, the different types of pencils and the amount of graphite that is a part of it. So yeah, there's different classifications, and I just find it so intriguing. Here we are. What is probably the most used artifact as a kid besides crayons?
Yeah, definitely pencils.
It's a pencil,
Yeah.
and probably more than crayons, actually, when you think about it. From kindergarten to 6th grade, all you use is pencils. I don't think they start letting you really use pens until the 7th grade. At least that's the way it was for me way back in the Stone Age. But
well, I preferred pencils because you could erase things.
you could erase things. Yeah. So it's just unique to me that here we have all these pencils. We use them in everyday life. I have a pen that shout out to Cross, because it's made by Cross.
Oh, yeah,
but
I have a
it's
Cross pen.
It's a pen. It's a blue pen, a red pen, and it's called, I think, the 3-Tech. It's a red pen, blue pen, and a pencil all in one. Pretty thin deal. And we use these pencils every day, and yet we don't even know where they come from. We don't know the history. So
Yeah.
it was very interesting for me to do this research and to find out, hey, they've been around for thousands of years, but really got perfected in the 1700s and mid-1800s.
I'm glad I know what the number means now, because I always assumed it had something to do with the size. I thought, oh, maybe they're all the same size, number 2.
Yeah. So America,
Nothing.
Even
Couldn't
if
be
you
further
go,
from the truth.
If you go to Canada, they will say we're using a 2B pencil. If you ask for a number 2 pencil, they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you're using HB. Okay, got it.
So, anyways, that's pretty much all I have on the pencil. There's a lot more that we could talk about. But,
other writing instruments. You got the felt tip pen, which became popular in 1960.
okay.
And that wasn't really that widely used when it first came out for some reason. Not sure why. I think it was partly because it might have been overshadowed by things like the space pen, because that was really a big deal.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
So the space pen is interesting. So there's like this, you hear this from your friends or different people where they say something like, well, the Americans spent $1 million. What happened is the American astronauts went into space and they realized that inkjet pens wouldn't work.
Okay.
I said inkjet, but ink pens
ink
wouldn't
pens.
work.
Okay.
They get there in zero gravity, the ink would not apply to the paper.
So are you talking about like a ballpoint pen?
Ballpoint pen, any ink pen.
Okay. Ink
so
pen. Got
gel doesn't matter, because it just wouldn't work.
So you need gravity
Yes.
to create.
Gravity for them to work.
Okay, and there's no gravity, so in space. So got
So
it.
in zero gravity, they didn't work. So they said the phrase goes something like, or the story goes something like this: the Americans got to space, they realized that pens didn't work in zero gravity, so they spent $1 million developing a pen that would work in space. And meanwhile, the Russians, they used a pencil. And it sounds kind of funny, like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
But that's not true. That's not
Okay.
what happened. So what happened is, it's true. Pens do not work in zero gravity. That part is true. What's not true is the Americans spent $1 million developing a pencil. The truth is that a man named Paul Fisher made this pen, and he's a businessman. He owns multiple businesses, and he makes a pen that says, hey, I made this pen. The cartridge is charged with nitrogen, so it would even work in space. You can draw underwater. You can draw upside down. You can draw on any surface, metal, plastic, doesn't matter. It'll draw on everything, and it'll work in space.
Wow.
So he had all these crazy claims. The reason he said it worked in space is because it was charged with nitrogen.
Okay.
And then
But had he ever tested it?
no,
like in
he had
space?
not tested it or
Okay.
approved it. Was not NASA funded or NASA approved.
Okay.
So NASA didn't give him any money. So he claims to have invested his own money, $1 million in research and development. So that's where that number comes from, the $1 million.
Okay.
But that's just his claim on what he spent to invent the pencil.
So there's
or
no.
the space pen.
Space pen. So there's no way to prove it one way or the other.
No way to prove exactly how much he spent in research and development, but it is true that he invented the space pen.
Okay.
The Fisher space pen. It's still called the Fisher space pen, the original one.
Got it.
So he creates this pen, and it didn't become used in NASA until NASA became criticized for spending a ton of money on pencils because it was found out that they had spent, what was the amount? Let's check my notes here. They spent $128 on these pencils.
Per pencil?
Per pencil. So
Okay.
adjusted for inflation, that's $986.
Woo!
So people were angry at unscrupulous contractors charging all this crazy money.
Now,
And
when you say pencil, was this a
this was a mechanical
pencil?
with a
Okay.
special housing so they could use it wearing their astronaut gloves.
Got it. Okay.
So they were very expensive, and NASA bought something like 34 of them, and it was like $33,000 in today's money. So it's a lot of money. So obviously taxpayers were upset that NASA is spending money on $33,000 worth in pencils.
Okay.
And they just didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it resonated with the people real well because people don't know what a jet engine costs, and these other things they have no idea what they would cost normally. So they just know pencils, that's outrageous for a pencil.
Yes.
And they're wasting our money was the idea. So NASA, because of the criticism, they actually purchased space pens from Paul Fisher. But they didn't spend $1 million. They spent $6 per space pen.
Okay.
And the Russians did the same thing. They both bought the
space pens from
Paul Fisher.
Paul Fisher. Wow. Okay.
And what's neat is you can still buy space pens today. They're very popular. You can write on just about any surface, and they're pretty neat.
I don't know that I've ever seen
Really?
a space pen.
They look kind of normal. Some of them there's all different variations and versions now because what makes them work is a nitrogen charged
Okay.
cylinder. But if you look up Paul Fisher space pen, you'll see that the original ones, like the AG6 or the anti-gravity 6.
Yeah.
But there's very many different variations of them that all work the same, work on many different surfaces. It's pretty neat.
So you can use them. You can use them underwater.
Underwater, upside down.
Wow.
They'll write on anything, basically anything. They'll write on most things, most materials, wood, metal.
How long will the ink stay? I mean,
Well, if you write on metal, it's applied to a surface. It's not going to stay very
Got
good
it.
because it's not
Okay.
absorbed into the metal.
so it doesn't change the way it just. There's ink that will come out. Let's put it that way. It doesn't
Yeah.
change how it
It'll
adheres to
apply.
the surface.
Yeah. So if you're using metal, when I worked with metal, we used soapstone to mark the metal or pencils.
Okay. So, wow. How much do these things cost now?
Now they're about $50, but you can get them even cheaper than that. You can get them for $35 on sale, but yeah, they're not bad. You can own one, write on different things.
Okay, and if they're nitrogen.
Nitrogen's a pretty stable gas. They use nitrogen in car tires now.
Yes,
because
I heard that. Yes.
It's more stable and
I think Costco, shout out to Costco, but I think Costco's putting all nitrogen in tires now. They don't put any.
It's more stable than air. So if
Okay.
you're in a very cold climate or a hot climate, you're driving in between those two climates, your tires aren't going to deflate or inflate as much as they would with air.
with temperature.
Yeah, they're more stable. They
Got
don't
it.
expand or contract as much as air does.
Okay. So with this nitrogen, the nitrogen charge, like does the nitrogen charge run out? You have to refuel that? How does that work? Or does
No,
it?
because it's more stable, it doesn't.
I mean in the pen.
Oh, in the pen. No, in the pen, it just goes until the ink runs out. You have to buy a new cartridge.
Oh, okay.
You can't refill it. A refill when it comes to a space pen is you buy a new cartridge, you slip the new cartridge in.
Got it.
If you break the seal, the nitrogen leaks out and it doesn't work.
It's useless. Okay. Wow. So this, you put the cartridge in. Is the cartridge also the ink itself?
So you have a cross pen. Have you ever replaced a cartridge in your cross
Yes.
pen? Yes, just like that.
It's just like that. Okay.
It just comes encapsulated, and you just swap out the entire cartridge.
Something that interests me in the whole deal.
If I didn't tell you it was nitrogen charge, you probably
never know.
wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I would. I guess I would have to. There's something about how they mix the nitrogen with the ink or something. How do they do that? Like when you have a
It's just a pressure thing. It's just a matter of causing a pressure in a chamber to force the gel, because it's not quite liquid ink. It
So
forces
it's a gel.
the gel. It's a pressurized chamber that forces the gel towards the end. So when the ball rolls against the gel, it can turn it into an ink-like substance.
I guess that's what I'm saying though. Is you have a gel in there and you have the nitrogen. Do the two ever mix? Is it two separate canister? Like you have your gel and then the nitrogen's pushing on the gel, and or is the nitrogen mixed with the gel, or I don't know. Those are
I
the
see.
way my brain.
I see. So no, the ball is kind of keeping the seal. So
Okay.
the ball is up against the gel, and if you were to remove the ball, it would lose its charge.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So the ball and the gel is stopping the nitrogen from escaping.
I'm sorry to our listeners. I know I'm in the weeds here, but it's very interesting.
No,
to me.
it's good. It is interesting. Now, I have heard this story before. Have you heard that story where people say the Americans spent $1 million and the Russians used the pencil?
I never have, but
Well, one of the reasons why we switched to space pens is not just because criticism. I say we. One of the reasons why NASA started using Fisher space pens is not just because of criticism from taxpayers. It was also because pencils were causing problems because they would sharpen the pencils, and then there's all these shavings, and the tips would break, and then you got these little graphite bits floating around in the space cabin. And back then, there's all kinds of open circuitry that these little pieces of graphite could short out. And upon re-entry, the temperature changes. They're worried about the graphite catching fire. If it got close to a piece of circuitry, got hot, it would catch fire. So there's lots of hazards involved with bringing pencils on a spaceship.
Because there is no gravity.
Right. They'll just float around everywhere.
They just float around everywhere.
Yeah, right.
So if you break the piece of lead or whatever you would do, it's going to float. It's going to get in the instruments, and you're going to have problems.
Yeah, and zero gravity is really interesting. You can't spend a whole lot of time, or you can. So they found out, this is off topic, but when astronauts would go into space and come back, their muscles could be atrophied from lack of exercise.
Okay.
So they had to come up with these exercises they do in space that you have to do every day to keep your body working properly, because we don't think about it here, but we use our legs, we use our arms against gravity, and it keeps your muscles working, keeps things working.
Yeah. So
They have like resistance bands that they do, and they do it every day.
Is that where resistance bands came from?
I don't know. I don't think
That'd
so.
be interesting.
Resistance bands is just low impact workouts, right? It's just easier on your joints.
But, when you look at all the things that NASA, like Velcro came, I know we're way off topic, but Velcro came because NASA needed something, and so they invented Velcro to go into space.
One of the coolest inventions that NASA, in my opinion, has come up with is MRIs. They didn't actually come up with MRIs. They were using this technology to measure gases and different densities in space. And then one of the scientists was talking about it, and this medical guy heard about it and says, wait a second, you can sense different densities and different gases and on this molecular level? He's like, oh, yeah, sure can. We could use that in a human body. He's like, you can? Yeah, because we could identify different blood vessels and cells. And that's where MRI came from, was a technology that NASA invented.
So it's pretty amazing the things that NASA has spurred.
Magnetic resonance something.
Yes.
MRI.
So if you've ever blown out a knee or had a ligament issue
Sorry, I don't
or
have the
anything
specifics
like that.
on that. I didn't actually research it. That's just something I heard from a talk.
Yeah, that's
a lecture.
That's very neat. So I do find it astounding how many different things come due to our race to space.
Yeah.
And this is another one.
So prior to me hearing about the MRI thing, I wasn't really for NASA. I thought it was kind of silly.
Yeah, it's kind of a waste almost.
I thought it was a waste of resources. I thought it should be privately funded and shouldn't be used with taxpayer money until I heard about the MRI thing. And I thought, okay, that really has revolutionized the medical industry.
It paid for itself in one moment.
With the MRI.
With the MRI. There's billions of people that have had MRIs.
Yeah.
I've probably had 7 MRIs at least myself.
Yeah.
And when I think about it, that's all due to the space race.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's pretty awesome.
You're probably right, yeah.
But
there's no, unfortunately, I can't say you're 100% right because there's no ante to it, right? There's no way for me to say, oh, well, no, we would have stumbled upon it.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
Yeah, it's impossible to prove or disprove.
Yeah.
Same thing as, we started this with resistance bands. Where did resistance bands? Who knows? But there's a good chance that they came because NASA needed a way to work out, and then once they found that they worked in space, they start using them now. I don't know.
Well, let's hear some feedback on that.
Yes, we look forward to...
If you know, because we failed to research that, then definitely reach out to us at the GABL Podcast at gmail.com. That's THEGABL podcast at gmail.com. Before we wrap this up, Don, do you have anything else on pens and pencils and space pens?
No, I think that pretty much... we could go on. There's a whole lot to it, but I think that's enough to kind of give the Cliff Notes version of how.
Yeah,
it's,
I think so too. If you guys want to know more, some of the sources we used was brainpickings.org. It's a pretty cool little website, and they did a history of the pencil segment as we use as part of the reference for this show. So thank you to them. We already gave the email. Is there anything else we need to do?
No, I think that's pretty
Shout out
much
to
it.
all the listeners and the feedback. Love the feedback we're getting.
Yes, I do. There is one thing, and that is I'd like to give a shout out to all the homeschoolers. So I
we
know
have been getting a lot of feedback from
getting-
homeschoolers.
Homeschoolers are giving us a ton of feedback. I know we're in with a couple of homeschool associations, and they're listening to us quite often. And so to all of you young people and children that are homeschoolers, hey, at one point I was a homeschooler. I give you a shout out. Keep up the good work. You're going to do well, and we believe in you.
Yeah, now you know what the number 2 means, and now you know it was never made with lead. It was always graphite.
Always graphite. That's it.
Man.
So, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have. I look forward to next week. We've got some good stuff coming down the pike.
Well, guys, let us know what you think. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And
Super important.
don't forget to leave us some feedback via the email or show suggestions. We love show suggestions.
Yes, we do. Yes,
All right.
we do. We're reading them all.
We'll talk to you guys next week.
Adios.